Welcome to the Celiac Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Lucia Cordero, and this is where we get real about life with celiac disease. Each week, I'll share practical gluten-free tips, wellness hacks, and honest conversations about the emotional side of living with an autoimmune condition. Think of this as your weekly mix of support, relatability, and inspiration to help you not just survive, but thrive with celiac. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder, I'm not a medical professional. Everything I share is based on my own experience living with celiac disease. This podcast is not medical advice, so please always consult your doctor about your own health. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. It's episode 2 of Celiac Diaries. I'm your host, Lucia Cordero, and I'm so excited to chat with you guys again. Today is a really great topic because I'm going to talk all about how I use ChatGPT to make my life with celiac disease easier. And I think there's so many takeaways that everyone can get from this episode, even if you don't have celiac disease. For anyone curious about using AI to just help make your life more organized or a little less overwhelming, but specifically we're going to get into all the takeaways for people that have celiac disease or are managing a gluten-free diet, and all of the tips and tricks that I leverage ChatGPT for to do just that. So I'm really excited to get into this because if you know me in real life, you know that I'm kind of obsessed with ChatGPT in a healthy way. I swear, I have boundaries, but I find it fascinating. I'm so into learning more about the AI space, and I'm so interested to hear how other people are leveraging it. And I think it's a really fun topic to talk about. So excited to just yap away about that for a little bit. But before we get into the meat of the episode, I just kind of want to take a step back because I've been kind of in a reflective mood today. So we're getting like maybe a little bit deep, but it's October 1st when I'm filming this. 1, I can't believe it's October, but 2, I actually launched Celiac Diaries today. So as you're listening to this, a week ago, I dropped my first episode. To be honest, I was really, really nervous about it, especially yesterday. I feel like starting something new is just always so nerve-wracking. I've kind of always leaned towards being a bit more of a perfectionist growing up, but I really think sharing content online with the way that I've been sharing it online for the past few years before starting this podcast has really taught me that you just can't be a perfectionist in this world, especially with creating content, because it really just makes you get in your own way. And if I waited for this podcast to be perfect, it never would have happened. So that's kind of been releasing some of my nerves with launch day, and perfectionism causes procrastination. So we're not being a perfectionist with this podcast. I'm just committing to doing my best and evolving it as I go. And that being said, I just want to thank all of you for all of the amazing support on the first podcast episode. It truly means the world, and I really appreciate all of the feedback. Please don't feel shy giving me constructive criticism. I will gladly take it. I want to make this podcast better and keep improving. But anyway, all of that to say, I know that's a bit of a tangent. It did get me reflecting, though, about how perfectionism can really tie into managing celiac disease. I'm going to dedicate a whole episode to mindset with celiac disease because I do think mindset affects everything in your life, but especially managing a chronic illness, and it can really change how you show up for it. Starting out with celiac, it can be so overwhelming and you feel like you have to be 100% perfect, because obviously that's the goal. The only cure for the disease is to be 100% perfect with your gluten-free diet and cross-contamination. But we are all human and errors are bound to happen. And I found that when I was first learning about celiac disease, when I would make a mistake or not be disciplined and sneak gluten, I would kind of just spiral and give up for the rest of the day or week because I just felt so bad about myself that I wasn't being perfect. And I was really treating the gluten-free diet like a little fad or diet or something I was trying out rather than a lifelong lifestyle. And the truth is, really, with celiac disease, managing it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And in so many ways, for me, it was paralleling to launching this podcast. It's trial and error as we go. It can be hard because you want to be a perfectionist with it, but sometimes that can lead to procrastination and you're putting off going to the doctor, you're putting off getting tested, you're putting off even committing to being gluten-free. The amount of people that I've met or seen online that say that they have celiac disease, but they just follow the gluten-free diet because it's too overwhelming. I'm like, wow, that's insane to me. But it is understandable because I do know how daunting it is. And I'm not speaking about this like I'm on my high horse or anything. I definitely procrastinated with celiac disease in the past. Eventually, I realized that I was really only hurting myself by doing that. And that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, to just help make it less overwhelming for people and share the tools and resources that I found that make it easier so that people stop procrastinating managing their celiac disease and can live healthier lives. So it's a great segue into the topic for today's episode because ChatGPT, even though I really just started using it this year, I feel like it really is one of the most helpful tools that I've used to manage celiac disease. So whether you're newly diagnosed, struggling with burnout, or you're just looking for ways to make life with celiac easier, this is the episode for you. If you know me in real life, you probably know that I like to call ChatGPT my personal assistant. So if you've ever wished that you had a gluten-free bestie to instantly check if something is safe, then guess what? You already do. It's right in your pocket. It's ChatGPT. And in this episode, I'm going to show you exactly how to use it to manage celiac disease. First up, before we get into all of that, it's time for our weekly segments. So first up, we have our news of the week. The FDA has granted Fast Track designation to TEV 53408, that's a mouthful, a drug candidate developed by Teva Pharmaceuticals. Whoa, okay, this is such a mouthful. Let me break this down. So, this drug is an antibody, and it's being investigated for its potential to lessen the damaging immune response to gluten in people with celiac disease. It's basically a drug that you could potentially take that would help lessen your body's immune response to gluten. A phase 2A clinical trial is already underway, focusing on assessing safety and efficacy and reducing gluten-induced intestinal damage. Okay, this is major news because celiac disease is one of the few diseases that doesn't have a specific drug that just kind of fixes it that you take every day. It really is a disease where the only cure is a lifelong, very strict gluten-free diet. You know, I'm super into holistic health, and I think it's really cool in some ways that you don't have to take a drug every day to manage celiac disease and that it's just diet-based and lifestyle-based. But I think just the way that the world is set up, it is difficult, obviously, to lead that lifestyle. Not because it's difficult to not have gluten. I feel like I get asked all the time, is it difficult having celiac disease because you can't eat pasta or bread or cake? And I'm like, honestly, no. It's really not difficult at all to just avoid eating gluten. What's difficult about celiac disease is avoiding cross-contamination, ensuring that when you go to restaurants, they're preparing things in a celiac-safe manner. That's what's stressful about celiac disease. So if there's a drug that we could take that would help offset the impacts of inevitable cross-contamination with celiac disease, I truly think it would be such a game changer. And it would just help with peace of mind. Like, there's only so much you can really control sometimes, but having a drug like this would help with peace of mind for those situations that are kind of outside of your control in terms of accidental gluten exposure, cross-contamination, or even like I've had experiences where I go to a restaurant, the waiter tells me something is gluten-free. I ask like several times to double check and confirm, and then they bring it out and it ends up not being gluten-free, or they bring out the wrong thing, they get the plates switched up. So there's just mistakes can happen. So having a drug like this, I think, could be so freeing to so many people with celiac disease. Obviously, people with celiac would still need to follow a gluten-free diet, but it would just make it a bit more manageable for the cross-contamination and things outside of your control. So I think this is incredible, and hopefully we're only going to see more and more research come out about celiac disease and more tools to manage it and cure it. So I think this is great news. All right, now I'm going to move on to my gluten-free fave of the week. This week, I have to give a shout out to a restaurant I went to last week in New York. I went to Kazunori. If you live in the city, you've probably heard of it. It's a super famous hand roll place. It's owned by the same people that own Sugarfish. And guys, I had the best dinner. I went with my friend on just like a weeknight. It's a unique experience. They don't take reservations, so you have to wait outside. So we ended up waiting outside for like 30 to 40 minutes. And then we got a seat. It's kind of like bar style seating. They were so accommodating with gluten-free. Basically how it works, it's a hand roll place. So they give you this sheet of paper that you fill out based on the rolls that you want. And the waiter just took my card, notated everything that was gluten-free. I told her I had celiac. She understood what cross-contamination was, which I'm very lucky to live in New York because I feel like most places do know about it, and it's honestly very easy to go out to eat in the city, which I do really appreciate. Shout out to Kazunori. It's ranked high on my belly. I'm such a fan. Yeah, that's my gluten-free fave of the week. If you're in the city or if you're visiting the city soon, definitely go check it out, but be prepared to wait. I recommend going on a weeknight. Now it's time to get into the meat of the episode. All right, guys. First, I'm going to just share why exactly I use ChatGPT for celiac. I mean, as I mentioned, I use it for almost every aspect of my life, it feels like. I find it so helpful in so many different ways. But specifically with celiac disease, as I mentioned in my last episode, celiac is so complex. There's so many moving parts with it that you need to figure out in order to thrive and manage it efficiently. There's so many labels to read. There's all of these ingredients that you can't pronounce on a food label, much less know if it has gluten in it or not. Traveling and figuring out where you can find your gluten-free options. There's always new confusions coming out with random things that you had no idea would even have gluten. Like my latest tribulation with that is cutlery. You would think a fork and a knife, you wouldn't have to worry about having gluten in it. But there's these new environmental wheat-based cutlery that are wheat-based, so they have gluten in them. So there's so many things to think about. It feels like no matter how much you know about gluten or celiac, there's just always something new that you're going to have to look up or research. I feel like every day, pretty much every day, I'm using ChatGPT to help me figure out if something is gluten-free or celiac safe. It's a constant researching game, really, having celiac disease. And before I started utilizing ChatGPT to manage celiac disease, I was spending hours trying to look things up, and it was so tedious. And ChatGPT honestly changed my life with it. So I'm so excited to share all of this with you. I feel like it saved me so much time. At the end of the day, saving time is priceless, in my opinion. And really, the thing that's difficult about celiac disease isn't not eating regular bread. It's really just feeling like you have to spend so much extra time just to do the most basic activities, like enjoying a meal with a friend or buying something at the grocery store just because you're trying to eat. It's kind of just this added layer of your life that's always in the back of your mind, and you constantly have to be thinking about it or else you're going to harm yourself. But ChatGPT does make managing it better because you're able to get answers faster and spend less time researching and figuring things out. So ChatGPT doesn't take away that feeling of always feeling like there's something in the back of your mind that you need to be thinking about when it comes to food, but it does help you manage it in a quicker way, which I think is priceless. And I do just want to say before I get into all of the daily ways that I use ChatGPT, a bit of a disclaimer, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with this. I'm sure all of you guys know this. I'm sure all of you are very smart and intelligent, but ChatGPT can always be wrong. I would never, ever take medical advice from ChatGPT. It's just important to gut check or double check things that ChatGPT tells you because it could always have an error. Take things that it tells you with a grain of salt. You got to be smart about using it, guys. Recognize it for what it is. It's not an end-all be-all. It's just a helpful tool. You have to hold on to your human common sense. ChatGPT does not replace human common sense, okay? Just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page about that. And now, finally, without further ado, let's get into the daily ways that I use ChatGPT in my life. So I have a bunch of different sections, and I'm going to share exactly what I use ChatGPT for within each section. And again, I have timestamps in the show notes, linked below if you're watching on YouTube. So feel free to scroll through, skip ahead, whatever you guys want. I'm going to get into recipes and meal ideas, grocery shopping, eating out at restaurants, planning travel, checking ingredients for medications, checking ingredients for skincare products. Yes, skincare products. And then consulting ChatGPT on symptoms. And also helping manage health goals that you have that aren't related to celiac. So first up, we have recipes and meal ideas. I'm gonna be honest, guys, I live in New York City. I live in a studio. I'm not really a chef. So there's so many ways probably that you could use ChatGPT for recipes and meal ideas that I just don't. Keep that in mind when listening to these ideas. There's probably way more you could do here, but ChatGPT can help you with gluten-free recipe inspiration. So if you find a recipe online that you really want to try, or a recipe from a friend, but it has gluten in it, you can easily just paste that into ChatGPT and ask it to make this meal celiac safe. Like, what alternatives do I need to make this meal celiac safe? Or send me this recipe back, but make it celiac safe. And it'll literally do that, which is so cool. All right, if you have random groceries left in your fridge and need to make something, you can tell ChatGPT, okay, I have eggs, spinach, sweet potatoes. What meal can I make with all of this? You can ask it for quick meal ideas if you're in a hurry. You can also ask it for specific budget constraint meal ideas. You can literally get so specific and granular with ChatGPT. If you are a chef, comment down below and let us know other ways that you use ChatGPT, because as I said, I'm really not a chef, so this is not my area of expertise. Grocery shopping. I do know this one. I do frequent the grocery store. My favorite thing to do at the grocery store, which has made my life so much easier because I don't have to spend 30 minutes typing in random ingredients into Google when I'm in the aisle at Whole Foods. I can literally just pick up an item, basically take a photo of the ingredients list, upload it into ChatGPT, and ask questions to figure out if this is something that's celiac safe, if there's something on the label that's confusing, or if I just want to double check and ask, are there any gluten-containing ingredients in this list? Do you see any ingredients that might come from wheat, barley, rye, or malt? Are there any ingredients here that could be risky for someone with celiac? Can you flag any words on this label that I should double check with the manufacturer? Are there any additives, flavorings, or starches in here that might hide gluten? Is modified food starch in this product safe for someone with celiac? And ChatGPT can literally go find in seconds what manufacturer the product that you took a photo of was made at, and look up the modified food starch that manufacturer uses and guarantee to you if it's celiac safe or not. Or I don't want to use the word guarantee, but it will look it up for you. You can also ask, could this ingredient list contain hidden gluten sources like malt, yeast, or barley enzymes? So there's so many questions you can ask it in a very pointed and direct way if you're just unclear if this product is gluten-free or if you just want a sanity check. You can also ask it to compare gluten-free brands for you. I know I went on a little bit of a rant about this in the last episode, but it's important to look at ingredients beyond just if something is gluten-free, because a ton of the gluten-free substitute options out there are just really bad for you, for a lack of a better way to explain it. Like, they just don't have the best ingredients. So if there's other things that you're looking for, you can ask ChatGPT to help you figure out which gluten-free bread is going to be better for you based on your goals. For me, I like asking which gluten-free bread has no added sugars, because that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm looking for. For example, my mom, very, very kind of her, she always buys me gluten-free bread before we go on a trip together so that I can have it at whatever place we're staying at. And she will often send me a photo of the different options of the breads at the grocery store, because she knows I'm very specific about which one that I like. And I'm usually busy. I don't really have time to research all of these different breads. Sometimes I never heard of some of them before. So I just take the photo that she sent me, I upload it into ChatGPT, and I'm like, can you take a look at all of these gluten-free bread options? Which one is the best for me to choose to have for the weekend that doesn't have added sugars and is best in X, Y, and Z? And it'll give you the information back to you. So that's another useful way you can use it to help you compare different gluten-free products if you're at the grocery store, or if you're like me and your mom's at the grocery store for you. You can also, if you find something in the grocery store that's not celiac safe, you can take a photo of that product and ask ChatGPT to locate similar products that are 100% gluten-free certified. That's something that's super helpful if you're looking for a gluten-free substitute or alternative, Or I feel like this is something that's super common with celiac, is that you find a product that's gluten-free, but it's not gluten-free certified or celiac safe. So you need to find an alternative product that is. And even before you go into the grocery store, you can tell ChatGPT the meals that you want to make. You can tell it what grocery store you're actually going to and specifically the location. I'm telling you guys, you can get so granular with this and ask it to create a full grocery list based on what's in stock at that store and gluten-free and celiac safe. There's so many different ways you can leverage it to make your grocery shopping easier and your product selection easier. And those are some really good ideas to get you started. Next up, we are discussing eating out at restaurants. My favorite topic. So obviously you can ask ChatGPT to look up some gluten-free restaurants for you in, X neighborhood, X area, X city. That's super helpful. But the thing that I found the most helpful with this is asking ChatGPT to look up specific menu items at specific restaurants for you. As I mentioned earlier, it can be so tedious trying to scroll through and find the allergen guideline PDF for a specific restaurant online, but you don't have to do that anymore. You can just have ChatGPT do all of that grunt work. For example, I have this subsidized meal plan at my corporate office where they basically deliver lunches to us. And it's all of these different types of trendy bowl places in the city, but there's so many of them and I can never keep track of which meals are gluten-free at which trendy bowl places in the city. I always just ask ChatGPT every day when I'm ordering my lunch. We'll either ask it to list out all of the celiac safe gluten-free options on the menu from this particular restaurant for me, or if I know that I already want something, I will explicitly ask it to check if this specific menu item from this specific restaurant is gluten-free or celiac safe. It'll outline what's gluten-free at that restaurant. I'll also often highlight any reviews of people that maybe had negative experiences with gluten-free options at that restaurant, which is just helpful context to know. And that's all stuff you could find on your own. But in my experience, it takes 10 to 15 minutes sometimes to get all that information together. And a lot of times when I'm ordering my lunch, I don't want to spend 10 to 15 minutes trying to figure out if something's gluten-free. I want to just know immediately. And it might not sound like a lot of time, but spending 10 minutes every day trying to figure out if something is gluten-free really does add up. So it really is a game changer to be able to just ask ChatGPT to do all of that work for you and give you everything that you need to know. I also like to do that sometimes before I go out to eat at a restaurant, like with friends or something. I'll be on the way, like on the subway or something, and I'll just ask ChatGPT what celiac safe or gluten-free options there are so I can get a little lowdown on the way. One thing that is a little challenging, and I'll do a whole episode on alcohol and celiac, and I also separately want to do a whole episode on sobriety and celiac because I think that's really interesting. But alcohol can be tricky with celiac disease in terms of just decoding if different cocktails are going to be gluten-free. Something that I found to be really helpful if I know that I'm going to want to get a drink at a bar or a restaurant, especially with dating in the city. I feel like most first dates, you're going to a bar and getting drinks. And I typically will ask ChatGPT to let me know what the gluten-free cocktail option is at that bar before I go so that I don't have to feel weird about it once I get there and I can just know in advance. So that can be helpful too because alcohol can be a bit confusing. I think I'm not really the biggest drinker, and I mentioned the sobriety episode because I've gone through periods of completely abstaining from alcohol, which I think can be beneficial for celiac disease. So we'll get into a whole episode on that. I think when it comes to alcohol, it's easiest to just stick to very, very simple drinks or canned seltzers. But again, we will save all of that for another episode. Next way I use ChatGPT to help manage celiac is planning travel. I love traveling. I'm actually flying to Vail tomorrow, so very, very exciting. I'm just going for a weekend trip, but if you're planning a larger trip, and you're creating an itinerary, it's very helpful to create itineraries with celiac in mind. And it's helpful to just integrate celiac into that itinerary that I'm already having ChatGPT generate. So earlier this year, I went to Paris And I used ChatGPT to plan the entire itinerary. And I told it while I was telling it every other thing about the trip that I wanted to do. I told it that I had celiac and that all of the food recommendations on the itinerary would need to be gluten-free or celiac safe or, have some sort of option for that. And it ended up being so helpful, especially navigating a city I don't know and a language I don't know. And it helped me find some really cool restaurants I wouldn't have otherwise found. And again, it just goes back to the time thing. I really saved a lot of time, which is really all that we're talking about here. A lot of time and stress that we just don't need to have in our lives, okay? And it just did give me some peace of mind too that I was going to be safe, because when I was planning this trip to Paris, I swear I randomly, I posted on my Instagram story a little Q&A box, and I asked people to submit Paris recs. And I didn't even ask for a gluten-free specific recs, but I guess my followers just know I'm gluten-free. The amount of DMs I got being like, girl, you're going to have the worst time over there. There's no gluten-free options. I was like, what? That's insane to me. And there were so many options. It's just a matter of doing the research, but it takes time, and ChatGPT can help save a little bit of that time. So another thing that I remember doing is I asked ChatGPT to provide me ideas for celiac safe, high protein, pre-packaged snacks that I could easily order on Amazon, as I didn't think about getting the snacks till 2 days before I was leaving and I needed them quickly. And I just thought it would be good to have some snacks on hand throughout the trip in case I do get in a pinch. Another thing that was cool was you can ask it to create a script for you on communicating your gluten allergy or celiac needs to restaurants. So I forget my little spiel that I had when I was in France, but it was something like, Je suis allergique à gluten, or something like that. And ChatGPT helped me figure that out. That's the tea on using ChatGPT to help make travel with celiac easier. Now let's move on to checking medications. So one thing that I didn't know about celiac disease for the longest time is that a lot of medications have hidden gluten in them. The more you know. I didn't know that for a while, so if this is your first time hearing that, now you know. But ChatGPT can be helpful in terms of breaking down over-the-counter meds and figuring out if they may contain gluten. Gluten is hidden in so many over-the-counter medications, so it's just important to check. Also, ingredients lists for those type of medications are kind of always changing, so safest bet is if you're at the store or if you're ordering online, just take a screenshot, take a photo of the ingredients list for the medication that you're wanting to get, upload it into ChatGPT, ask it if there's gluten, because especially in those medications, there's always so many ingredients that you can't pronounce or have never even heard of, and it just saves you so much time from looking up all of those individual ingredients. I also have a couple prescriptions that I take, and I always have a note for my pharmacist when my prescriber calls in my medication to confirm that there's no gluten. But you can never be so sure. I actually had an experience previously where they had that note in there, and then it ended up I was actually having a medication that did have gluten in it, because it is just one of those things that's a little specific and maybe some pharmacists just aren't as aware about it. So in the past, I would have to go look up the specific manufacturer for the specific medication, and it was this whole ordeal, and it was so confusing. And now what I do is I take a photo of the medication. I ask ChatGPT to look it up to help me figure out if this is celiac safe and doesn't have any gluten. It'll look up the manufacturer for me. It'll look up what that manufacturer's practices are about tracings of gluten being found in that specific medication and in that location. It's just so helpful, because honestly, that was such a headache to try and deal with before, especially when for the longest time I didn't even realize that was something I should even be aware of. So that's a really, really helpful tool. You can also do the same thing for supplements that you're taking. This really just saves you hours of Googling, guys. It saves you so much time. It's insane. Next up, checking skincare and beauty products. So there can be hidden gluten sources in skincare or makeup. There's a lot of different opinions on if this really does affect people with celiac disease. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I live in a world where there's so many different skincare and beauty products. So you best believe I'm going to be making sure that mine are gluten-free, especially if it's like chapstick or something. I feel like you're definitely ingesting that. I think I saw a report the other week that was a little concerning, but it was basically like the average girl eats like 4 lipsticks a year. You definitely need to be aware of that. I also have acne-prone skin, so separately I use it to also ask if there's any pore clogging ingredients in new products that I'm wanting to try, so that's really helpful too. You can also do this for household products like cleaning supplies. If you have a pet food, I've heard of that, being an issue for people. There's so many things that you need to check, and it can feel overwhelming, but when you have this tool that makes it so much easier, it's so much less daunting, which is what we want. Okay, next up, this one, I could see this being maybe a little bit controversial, but I'm going to share it anyway because I do think it's helpful. Again, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Do what works for you. Take what you want. This is not the Bible, but something that I think is helpful is consulting ChatGPT on your symptoms. So if you feel like you've been glutened, ChatGPT can help you identify potential triggers from your day. So you can tell it like, I ate X, Y, and Z today. I feel like I've been glutened. What do you think could have been the potential cause of this? And really what it does is it just helps you think through things in an analytical way, because you might be thinking very subjectively in that moment, and it just helps you narrow things down and like lay things out very methodically. I remember I was in New Orleans last year and I had the worst stomach pains. And I was like, okay, I definitely have been glutened. There's no ifs and buts about it. It definitely happened, but I was just so confused. I was like, how? Like, I know that I haven't had gluten. Like, where did I get this from? And I inputted everything into ChatGPT and told it everything that I had that day. And it just helped me realize specifically what the issue was from. It was likely from cross-contamination at a specific restaurant that I went to, because it was able to look up reviews from that restaurant, which I probably should have done before I even ate at that place. And it found reviews of similar experiences of it happening with people with celiac disease. So it can just be validating and a helpful tool to help you spot patterns that you might just miss on your own. Of course, you always just need to listen to your body and trust yourself. And remember that ChatGPT is not medical advice, but it's just a tool, and I find it helpful in terms of narrowing things down like that. Okay, lastly, I wanted to touch on using ChatGPT to manage health goals beyond just being gluten-free. With celiac, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. There's other complications or symptoms or things that you've developed because of the malnutrition that you have gotten from celiac disease or whatever it may be. I, earlier this year, was diagnosed with osteopenia, which is basically low bone density. And I met with an endocrinologist to come up with a plan for this. And basically the plan is to take vitamin D supplements, which I've been doing, and increase my calcium intake. So my goal for calcium is 1,200 milligrams a day. And when I first found out I had to do this, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. There's another thing I need to be focusing on with my diet. It's like, it's already hard enough sometimes being gluten-free, and like, now there's something else. And ChatGPT makes it easier because I can personally tailor all of these celiac recommendations to me. So everybody with celiac is different. For me, yeah, I need to be gluten-free, but I also really need to be cognizant of getting my 1,200 milligrams of calcium every day and increasing my calcium intake. And that's something that's maybe not just as important, but it's up there. It's definitely something I need to prioritize. So ChatGPT helps kind of personalize that for me. There's so many tools out there for celiac or gluten-free managing or food logging. The cool thing about ChatGPT is that you can personalize it to your specific needs. So if you have something else like what I have with osteopenia, you can tailor your AI tool to know that about you and learn that about you and remember it about you, as dystopian as it sounds. And it just helps it become that much more of an effective tool for you to use. And it's proactive about it too. So if I'm asking ChatGPT to tell me what's safe at a specific restaurant that I'm going to that night, it'll often tell me what's gluten-free and give me 5 different meal options that are likely going to be celiac safe. And then it'll proactively add, and this one would be great to choose because of your osteopenia calcium goals. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, sometimes you might not take up the advice, but it's just nice. It's a nice nod for it to be thinking about that proactively. Again, as dystopian as this sounds, but it can really just help you streamline everything if you are managing multiple different things, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are, because with celiac, as I've discussed, there's so many different complications and things that can come from it and other malnutrition things that we will definitely get into in further episodes. Everyone is unique, and that's the cool thing about this tool, is that you can really tailor it to your own specific needs and lifestyle. Again, like some of you guys might be chefs and you don't really need to use it for restaurants like I do. So there's so many ways to make this tool your own and to just help make your life easier and help make thriving with celiac easier in a logistical way, but it also ends up being in a mindset way, because it just takes the mental load off, which is one of those things with managing celiac that I think can be challenging, especially when you're first diagnosed. Just that mental load of having to think about it all the time and the stressfulness of it. And I really think that this is such a helpful tool to take that load off of you so you can just focus more on enjoying your life, which is what we all want, right? Okay, so that's really all of my major takeaways and learnings of how I use ChatGPT in my daily life. I really hope this was helpful to you guys. I do just want to emphasize again, ChatGPT is a great tool. I've found it to be very supportive and effective, but it's not a dietitian, it's not a doctor. It also can be wrong, so you always need to double check any medical or nutritional info. Think of ChatGPT as your personal assistant, a little helpful sidekick, but it's not an authority figure, and it's not a doctor, okay? Just like I'm not. With that in mind, I encourage all of you guys to download ChatGPT if you don't have it yet, and think of some ways that you can start using it to help make your life with celiac a little bit easier. I challenge you guys to look up one thing, or if you're going to a restaurant this weekend, try playing around with it, see what prompts work for you. I think ChatGPT in itself can be intimidating, but once you start playing around with it and exploring, it's pretty intuitive. If you did find this episode helpful, share it with another gluten-free or celiac friend. And thank you guys so much for listening. Please comment on the episode how you use ChatGPT. If you want to take the time to leave a review, give the show a 5-star rating. It would truly mean the world. I'm already so excited to record next week. Next week's episode, I think I'm going to get into celiac and anxiety and how specifically they're connected. I know I touched a bit on the mindset in this episode, but I really just want to dive deeper into that. It might be a bit more of a vulnerable episode, but I feel like it'll be a good one to do. I will see you guys back here next week for that episode. I truly can't wait. Don't forget to follow the show so you don't miss it. And that's all she wrote. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Celiac Diaries podcast. I hope you're leaving with a tip, a story, or just a little inspiration to live your best life with celiac. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a review. I'll see you back here next Wednesday. And until then, stay well.